Hello everybody, Mr. Noland here. Alright, so I'm going to be going over the front page of the Do Now. This would be for regulars. If you have pre-AP, it'll say pre-AP on top. If I remember right, the front page is pretty much the same. Maybe one of these numbers is changed up here for Monday, but it's okay. You can at least, if you're in pre-AP, you can at least get the gist of what I'm doing. So on Monday it says write the equivalent fraction and decimal for each percent given. So 36%. To convert a percent to a decimal, the first thing is you cover up the percent sign. Do you see a decimal anywhere in there? No. So you put the decimal at the very end, and you move it 2 places to the left. So your equivalent decimal would be 0.36. Now for your equivalent fraction, what you do is you take the number given, which is 36, and you put it over, what are percents out of? Percents are always out of 100, so put it over 100. Now you must simplify. Since both of these numbers are even numbers, they are both divisible by 2. Well, if you notice, they're still both even numbers, so you can divide by 2 once more. So here's your equivalent fraction simplified down, and here's your equivalent decimal. All right, number 2. Again, equivalent decimal. Cover up your percent sign. Since there is no decimal, put it at the very end. Move it 2 places to the left. So your equivalent decimal is 0.65. Turn 65% into a fraction. So that is 65 over 100. Now if you notice it ends in a 5 and a 0, that means they're both divisible by 5. Alright, 65 divided by 5. Let's see. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65. That was 13 fingers. And if you keep going, 100 divided by 5, that'll give you 20 fingers. Guys, don't be afraid to use your fingers to help you count. It is a tool. Don't ever be afraid to use a tool. Alright, number 3. Turn the percent into a decimal. So cover it up. If you notice, there is no decimal, so put it at the end. And now move the decimal 2 places to the left. 1, 2. Oh, you'll see this empty space here. What goes in there? A 0. So your equivalent decimal should be 0.08. Now let's write it as a fraction. So that would be 8 over 100. Now if you notice, they're both even numbers, so they are both divisible by 2. Now walking around, some of y'all left that as your answer. You're going to be wrong. They are both even numbers still, so they're both divisible by 2 again. So 2 over 25 is your equivalent fraction simplified down. So there's Monday's Do Now, all done. Now Tuesday is what we started learning on Monday, finding the percents. Alright, so we do need to set up a bar model, and we're going to finish these sentences over here. Alright, so number 4, Sally's soccer team played 25 games and won 17 of them. What percent did they win? Alright, so yesterday I made a video on the notes and the homework on percent bars, and I have to apologize. I was being very lazy with it. I did not set them up correctly. I was trying to do a small shortcut, so I will set it up correctly from here on out. Alright. This here is like the beginning line of a race. You start at 0. Right down here is going to be your percent. You start at 0%. Here's your finish line right here. A finish line means you are 100% through with the race once you cross it. Alright? So now we're going to have to figure out 3 little pieces. Part, whole, and percent. Again, it tells us Sally's soccer team played 25 games and they won 17 of them. What percent did they win? Well, it gives us the whole. The whole is the total amount. In this case, they played 25 games. It also gives us the part. It tells us how many games they won. So on this percent bar, if you notice, they won 17 out of 25 games. So is that number 17 closer to 25 or is it closer to 0? Well, it's closer to 25. So I'm going to make a line about right there. It's a little bit more than half. And we won 17 of them. It wants to know what percent we won. So this is what we're solving for right here. All right. This is going to lead me into what we are learning today with key vocabulary words. Tomorrow you're going to learn about finding the part. Okay. I'm sorry, you're going to be finding the whole. Part, the key vocabulary word is going to be is. You'll see that in tomorrow's notes. Whole, the key word here is of. So I'm going to set up a couple proportions. It's going to be is over of equals something over 100%. So if we look closely over here, my is 17. My of is 25. I don't know what my percent is here. That's what I'm solving for. That's my unknown mystery. That's why I'm going to call it X. Percents are always out of 100%. I'm going to take this work right here, and I'm going to push it right over here. Oh, but I need to finish filling this in before I solve it. Blank is what percent of blank? Oh, look. Keyword here is. What was my is? It was 17. What was my of? Oh, it's right here. It's 25. So 17 is what percent of 25? Well, we have ourselves a scale factor. To get from 25 to 100, you have to multiply by 4. So what is 17 times 4? If you do the math, 17 times 4 is 68. So your answer there would be 68%. Now, yes, this is a lot of work, but we're trying to go in detail showing you how to solve these things. All right, these next two problems are going to go by a little bit faster. I'm not going to go quite as slow. All right. Again, start by setting up your percent bar. All right, of the 200 guests invited to a wedding. So there was 200 guests invited. So that's your whole number. 154 of them attended the wedding. So look at the 154, because that is my part. Is 154 closer to 200 or is it closer to 0? Well, it's a lot closer to 200. So here's how I'm going to put my line for my percent bar. It wants to know what percent of the invited guests attended the wedding, so this is what we're solving for. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go right over here. Blank is what percent of blank? Well, remember, we just said in the previous problem, the is your part, whole, or of is for the whole. So 154 is what percent of 200? Setting up here as a proportion. Is. So that's 154. Of is 200. My percent here, I don't know. That's what I'm solving for. Percents are always out of 100%. I have a scale factor here. To get from 200 to 100, you have to divide by 2. So what is 154 divided by 2? You do the math and you get 77%. Alright, this last one's a little bit tricky here. Lindsay bought a new jacket during a sale. The jacket normally cost $200, but she only paid $40. What was the percent of the discount? So this is huge right here. What was the percent of the discount? Okay, I'm going to come back to that here in a second. I'm going to start by filling in my chart. Or my percent bar. Here we are. Now, we already know what my original cost was. It was $200, so that's your whole. Now, a lot of y'all are going to say the part has to be $40 because it's in there. No, it is not. If you use 40 as your part, you're going to have to do extra work. The reason being, look at the question. The question says, what was the percent of the discount? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take how much it normally cost minus how much she actually paid. You do your math here. And she got $160 off the jacket. That's going to be my part right there, is the 160. So is the 160 closer to 0 or is it closer to 200? Good, it's closer to 160. What we're solving for is this piece right here. So let's go and fill this in. 160 is what percent of 200? Let's set up our proportions. 160 over 200 is equal to my unknown over 100%. Here's my scale factor. To get from 200 to 100, you have to divide by 2. So 160 divided by 2 is 80%. So this was an 80% discount. Now, if you use the 40 as your part, you have gotten 20 as your answer. 20% is your answer. That would be wrong. The 20% is what she paid. So you have to read these questions carefully. Now, this is the only video I am going to make for the Do Now, for regulars and pre-AP. You have an example of what we're looking for the rest of the week. This should help guide you for the rest of the week. Alright guys, I hope you have a great day. Now we'll talk to you later. Bye.